And good morning, everyone. Welcome in. Brand new edition of Sports Medicine Weekly on this Saturday morning. My name is Steve Cashel. Proud to be joined by my usual co-host, Dr. Brian Cole, head team physician with the Chicago Bulls, one of the team physicians with the White Sox, sports medicine specialist, orthopedic surgeon from Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Our website is sportsmedicineweekly.com. And Dr. Cole, I hope you're doing well on this Saturday morning. Interesting how Major League Baseball, about to kick off the season next week, is doing things a little bit differently than the NHL and the NBA, correct?
Yes, they are, unlike having a central hub or sort of a bubble approach where you could really tightly control who comes in and out, and geographically you stay in one or just a couple of locations. MLB is going to be playing in their stadiums, and I think it's a 60-game season, end up in September, starting July 23rd. It's a different protocol, and it'll involve a lot more testing, a lot more monitoring, but I think it's a good protocol, and it addresses the concerns we have, and I think from a likelihood of success, it's as likely as anything else that we're seeing in either independent baseball, the NBA, or hockey, NHL.
Okay, let's move on. And got a great guest on the line, Dr. Cole. We want to bring on Brian Ball, the head athletic trainer with the Chicago White Sox, now in his 20th season with the White Sox. Baseball, of course, has been on pause since March 12th. But the White Sox and MLB have put some great safety measures in place. It's great to see the players back on the field in their individual ballparks. And the Major League season will open on Thursday, July 23rd. First White Sox game, the 24th. And Brian, thanks so much for joining us. What has been the biggest challenge for you and the White Sox due to this COVID pandemic?
Well, thanks for having me. The biggest challenge we've had is just keeping our players going and keeping their performance levels up. We were almost to the end of spring training when everything got shut down and guys were getting ready for the season, and then everybody got sent home basically for 4 months. And it was just the biggest challenge was keeping those guys throwing, keeping our pitchers going, just keeping everybody in shape and ready to go, because when we came back, we're trying to pile a whole spring training of 6 weeks into 3 weeks to get ready for the season.
Brian, you've been back now about 2 weeks, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so everyone's coming into market from different places and so forth. What was the testing protocol like for you guys when everyone was coming back in?
So we had what we call intake testing, where we did a MLB saliva test, as well as a antibodies test with a blood smear on the first day. And we broke that up so that we didn't have more than like 25 tests every day. And we got through that. It took us about 4 days to get through that. And then it took about 48 to 72 hours to get the results back from the lab that baseball has running all the results up in Salt Lake City. And we were fortunate enough to get everybody into camp. And, we just had a couple positives that we've dealt with. And, but all in all, everybody coming from every part of the country they were in, we were very healthy coming into camp.
Moving forward, we were lucky that we had the saliva test for one, because if anyone's ever had the test, the official one, which for PCR, which the first one, which is the one where you do a nasopharyngeal swab, goes way up there. And one of the challenges is with our athletes, repeat testing is a big part of the protocol. I just wanted to get a sense moving forward, because you guys are unlike the NHL or NBA. In the MLB, we're going to have a little of a different situation where you'll be traveling and going to different stadiums without fans. And right. I'm curious what the projected frequency, and I've pored over the MLB document myself, and I'm curious what you think the projected frequency is going to be for these guys to get tested. And thankfully you guys have this relationship for the sputum or the saliva because it's a much easier test, and it actually has very good accuracy, sensitivity, and specificity, even compared to sort of what people think of the gold standard. What do you think the frequency of testing is going to have to be going forward?
So we're being tested. The field staff and the players are in Tier 1. Baseball has this tiered off in different groups. We have Tier 1s and Tier 2s that get tested. Our Tier 1 group, which includes the players, the coaches, the trainers, strength coaches, and we're tested every other day. So and that will continue throughout the rest of the season as well. So we have to spit in the tube every other day, and we get an antibodies test once a month. Our Tier 2 folks, they get tested twice a week. So our team docs are in our Tier 1 as well, and so they've been getting tested every other day as well. So it's a lot of tests, and baseball feels that by doing the every other day test that we will prevent like an outbreak in the clubhouse. And this is going to be one of the strategies to help us be successful to keep baseball up and going for the whole year.
We're visiting with Brian Ball, head athletic trainer with the Chicago White Sox. I'm Steve Cashel with Dr. Brian Cole at Sports Medicine Weekly here on The Score. Our website is sportsmedicineweekly.com. And Brian, tell us about the players, how they are reacting to the testing and getting back on the field and some of the physical challenges, as you said, because we were shut down for so many weeks and had been put on pause since basically the middle of March. So what are some of the challenges the players are facing physically?
So our big thing is, baseball doesn't look like what it looked like whenever they left. We've all got on surgical masks. We got to wear a mask throughout the clubhouse, and they've got to keep it on. They have to have their mask on when they're in the clubhouse, when they're in the training room getting treatment, whenever they're doing their activities. And then when they go out on the field, they can take their mask off, or if they're doing strenuous activities in the clubhouse, like strength conditioning, they can have their mask off. But, things look a lot different. The rooms are socially distanced. Their lockers are 6 feet apart now, and a locker room, there's nobody in the locker next to them anymore. And we've got a kind of, the White Sox have built an auxiliary clubhouse out into the tunnel where we've got extra lockers set up. We're using the visitors clubhouse during our our summer camp, our spring training 2.0, whatever you want to call it. And, we're not eating in the clubhouse, not getting those good breakfast and lunch and dinners that they're used to. That we are getting fed, but it's all prepackaged and ready for you to take home as the day's over. But baseball just looks a lot different, and so these guys are, they've got to deal with the stress of that, and they've got to deal with the stress of the coronavirus and getting tested every other day. And all in all, they're handling it very well. They're very appreciative of the testing, because I think that together we can make this work. And I think that they realize that that testing negative and being able to stay in the game is good for everybody, because you got to be socially responsible when you leave the ballpark and go home and not be going out and doing things that you might typically have done otherwise. And because they know that it takes one of them to infect a few other guys, and then before you know it, we don't have enough guys to play. So baseball for them is a whole lot different than it was when they left to go home in March, and they're handling it well.
Brian, I want to get back to that in a second, but I wanted to ask you something about the strategy with this abbreviated post-spring training, spring training 2, as you call it, I guess. What are, this really digs deep into your skill set as a trainer and your strength and conditioning guys. There's an amazing team that we have with the White Sox. What are you doing differently, if anything, to sort of accelerate things with just less time on your hands before the season opener?
Well, first off, we have an amazing staff. We have an amazing athletic training staff. We got amazing strength coaches. Our whole staff together. We got some really good people, and we've just really been working with these guys. We knew that things were getting close with negotiations for baseball to start back up at some point. So started making sure that, guys were doing their conditioning. Alan Thomas, our strength coach, he was, on these guys the whole time they were home about staying in shape and keeping their bodies, in shape so that they would be ready to go. And it'd be more fine tuning when they got here. And same with Brett Walker, our assistant athletic trainer. And our other guys, James and Josh, they were working with our players to make sure they were throwing, make sure that, they were running and, just stay in baseball shape for the whole time they've been at home. And we just didn't know what the end date was going to be, but we knew that we had to stay in shape. And so the biggest challenge for us has just been that we're trying to pile 6 weeks of work into 3 weeks, and we're trying not to overwork these guys at the same time. But we got so much stuff to do to get them ready for the game, for the season. And, it's just the challenge is you can only get so many people in the clubhouse at one time. And the training room used to, hold half the team, and now it holds 7 people, So there's been a lot of long days here. The staff has put in some 12, 14-hour days here at the ballpark since spring training started. And but we're going to be ready. When the bell rings, our guys are going to be ready to go.
One of the things that I've been talking to a lot of our athletes about is sort of what you were alluding to before is the psychology of this. And, in many respects, this is a privilege at a time when things are just really upside down. I tell them that it's a privilege to be able to practice your craft. And I'm not talking about the money necessarily, although that is relevant in terms of it offers them the ability to make a living. But it's a privilege to be able to do this at a time when there's so many different stresses in life, and they have an incredible responsibility, like you said, to maintain it, because they're gonna follow the rules in the clubhouse. It gets fatiguing after a while too. I mean, this is like every day is like Groundhog Day, and
Yep.
and one thing that just can't be lost on us as sort of older individuals, a little more seasoned, is just to help them from the psychological perspective. I mean, the public is quick to say, well, they're being paid tons of money. They should be able to suck it up and just do this. It isn't really that simple. I mean, these guys are, in some respects, they're kids. I've got a 21-year-old at home, and you just watch all the things that our kids are going through. And in many ways, it's very similar. They have to just sort of lock it in until September. I say, you guys have one responsibility: stay in shape, play well, stay healthy, and do your jobs, and get rid of all the extraneous things, because it's a very real phenomenon. I mean, it's amazing to me that some of the narratives that I'm hearing even more recently, but here in Illinois, we're good, and I think unfortunately the pressure is going to dial up a little bit. I can tell you the testing challenges are increasing, the pressure there is increasing, the days to get the test results are increasing, the labs are being overwhelmed because the number of people who want to test is going up, and there's a significant positivity rate. So the big package is sort of getting more and more compressed, and I think these guys have a big burden, as do you. All of us do. It's a big burden. But I also, on the flip side, think this is really important, because the more things that you have that are sort of a sense of normalcy, I think is really important for all of us to see. I mean, people need a distraction, and sports is part of our society. It's an enormous part of our society, and independent of the economic impact, just think about the psychology from our kids on up, how important it is for them to either live this vicariously or see something that's normally going on, even without fans. Television will do a great job. So it's a big responsibility, and I'm sure these guys recognize it. I have to imagine you've had some pretty heartfelt conversations with some of these guys.
Yeah, they're for sure. I mean, and at the end of the day, these guys they're athletes, and people know who they are, and but they're normal people as well. They've got some of the same concerns going that we all do with our families, and families aren't typically here this time because we're just trying to keep as few people that they have contact with as possible. But obviously we want them to have contact with their family, but it's a matter of when their family comes into town, their family gets tested, and then they're sitting on the edge of their seat waiting to make sure that their family's negative, and they don't have it when they get here, and then they go back home, and we go on the road, and there's a lot of stress that comes with being a professional athlete, but there's a lot more stress right now just because of all the little things that are going on that are just really has everybody kind of out of their normal lane that they go in. I mean, even with us in the training room, we're given a daily briefing on test results, and that's not something you would have ever thought that we would be doing. That would be coming up before the injury report does. Is everybody in camp still? Is everybody still okay to be here. So it's just there's a lot of stress that comes along with that. And these guys, they're normal. And like you said before, they're young. And they got to deal with it just like everybody else does.
Again, our guest, Brian Ball, head athletic trainer with the Chicago White Sox, now in his 20th year with the White Sox. Brian, continued success. A lot of Sox fans, baseball fans, can't wait to see you guys play coming up at the end of next week. So we wish you all the best. Thanks so much for lending your time and expertise and everything that's going on with the White Sox here on Sports Medicine Weekly.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Brian Ball, head athletic trainer with the White Sox. We have to take a break. When we come back, Dr. Brian Cohen will be back with our Ask the Doctor segment. You're listening to Sports Medicine Weekly, only on
670 The Score.
Back here on this Saturday morning, Sports Medicine Weekly, Steve Cashel, Dr. Brian Cole. Programming note, our show, Sports Medicine Weekly, moving to a new day and time, Sundays at 7 a.m., beginning next Sunday, July 26th. Same program, same hosts. Hope you can join us as we continue to do all new shows each week, discussing the hot topics and latest in sports medicine, from the pros to the weekend warriors. Once again, beginning next Sunday, July 26th, Sports Medicine Weekly moving to Sunday mornings at 7 a.m. only on The Score, Sports Radio 670. And also, folks, to check out current and past shows, Sports Medicine Weekly presents our podcasts. You can find them on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And Dr. Cole, interesting story from this past week, just back on Wednesday, July 15th, a few days ago, 36 students from Lake Zurich High School sports camp tested positive for COVID-19. And one of our listeners calling in saying, Dr. Cole, we're at another school district. What should we expect following what we learned from Lake Zurich High School sports?
It's, I think, Steve, this is what's representative of what we're likely to be seeing now that these opportunities for kids to either enjoy or participate in the camps for sports, various sports, conceptually thinking about going back to sports in the fall. The highest positivity rate change has been in kids, in this sort of 16 to 25-year-old age range. And, again, it's been a challenge for them. They've done a great job, but it's gotten to a point, I think, that now there are more opportunities as things have opened up, that they're clearly our biggest challenge to keep them in check. Good news is the younger population in general, but not exclusively, but in general, has low-level symptoms, sometimes no symptoms. But there are examples of 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds who just get just as ill as our older individuals. We just have to keep in mind that, our goal here is, again, goes back to what we talked about in March, to so-called flatten the curve, right, Steve? And that means don't overwhelm the hospital system. And I think you and I are going to have to keep our eyes on what happens locally in Illinois and just keep our fingers crossed that it's not going to be the same thing that's happened in 35 or more states. So I think what's going to happen, probably not going to be the first situation. And generally, if you have a couple people who test positive, you can do some contact tracing, keep it in check. You don't have to shut down a whole program. But when you have 35 or more people in an organization who are on top of each other from a sporting point of view, test positive, you pretty much have no choice but to shut it down. And I think parents are going to not be particularly interested in sending their kids into that environment. It's possibly less about the kids getting sick than it is the parents at home as well. But it all matters. So, Steve, it's going to be a challenge. I think I'd love for us to not have to talk about this at all on a weekly basis. It's something that all of us are in tune with and affects us every single day.
Okay, Dr. Cole, we are out of time. So wishing you and your family and your patients all the best, and your staff. And good to see baseball back next week. Look forward to that. But we'll talk with you next Sunday. Again, Sports Medicine Weekly moving to a new day and time. Sundays at 7 a.m. It begins next Sunday, July 26th. So we look forward to talking with you then.
Likewise, Steve. Have a great week.
Thank you. And also, friends and listeners, you're invited to tune into our Sports Medicine Weekly podcasts, available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, listening to current and past shows. Many thanks to our producer, Shane Reardon, also to David Cole for managing our website and our business operations, as well as Samantha Smith from Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. For Dr. Brian Cole, I'm Steve Cashel saying so long. We thank you for listening to Sports Medicine Weekly. Be back again next Sunday at 7 a.m. Central with a brand new edition of Sports Medicine Weekly. Have a safe rest of the weekend, everyone. You're listening to Sports Medicine Weekly only on 670 The Score. Take care, everybody.